want to be God's man by understanding a woman's heart, you have to get one thing stamped on your brain about your wife or your future wife. You ready? They want you to know them before you know them. I'm going to say that one more time. They want you to know them before you know them in the biblical sense, in the physical sense. In other words, they want to be known emotionally before they're known physically. So let's talk about intimacy for a second. Intimacy for women, intimacy for men. And it's pretty easy when you're talking about the guys and how they spell intimacy, especially in a marriage relationship. It's spelled S-E-X, okay? No big surprises there, not rocket science. You know how women spell intimacy? T-A-L-K. And since that right there, talk being how women spell intimacy, is an indestructible reality, there is a big, fat, hairy implication for all of us guys, okay? And here it is. Not listening, or even the perception that you are not listening for a woman, is synonymous with a few things. A, it's synonymous with not caring. And not caring triggers a whole flood of destructive attitudes in her that infect your relationship. They lay dormant, sometimes for years. And that's when we think things are okay, and then all of a sudden, wham! And her bags are packed, or she's gone, or she's really distant from you. I've had so many broken men show up in my office whose wife had simply given up trying to connect emotionally years earlier, and she was just waiting for her moment. And all along, the guy had no idea, but she had given up. So here's one thing you need to know when it comes to your marriage, God's man. Satan loves a God's man who is a bad listener. And the reason he loves a God's man who's a bad listener is because he knows that a bad listener kills intimacy in his marriage. A bad listener creates resentment in his marriage. And a bad listener creates vulnerability and openness to extramarital affairs and divorce on both sides of the coin. It's pretty real, isn't it? And that reality makes our key verse one of the best marriage and relationship saving verses in the Bible. And it's in James chapter 1, verse 19. It says this: "My brothers, my dear brothers, take note of this. Be quick to listen and slow to speak and slow to get angry." So if you haven't gotten it yet, listening, period, is a big deal to God because he knows that it communicates powerfully to the people in front of us. Now, listening to a woman because of how they're wired by God, it's just not big. It's titanic. It's a titanic issue that impacts every aspect of your connection and your closeness to her. So let's talk a little bit about the difference between hearing and listening really quick. And then we'll get to some simple but powerful mechanics that can help us be God's man in the listening bucket and minister to a woman's heart. So what's the first thing you need to know? First thing you need to understand is that there's a huge difference between hearing and listening. So let's talk about hearing for a second. Hearing is a biological phenomenon. Listening is a totally different thing. Listening is not a biological phenomenon. Listening is an acquired skill that helps us connect meaningfully, not with our environment, but with people, okay? And that right there is very meaningful with a woman. So the question is, so how will she know if I'm listening when I go home today? Or how will she know that you're listening at the breakfast table tomorrow morning? Well, what I want to do is I want to give you 5 simple ways she will definitely know that you are listening. And in the process, okay, without saying anything, you are communicating respect. You are communicating love, and you are showing her maturity. Okay, the first way to demonstrate love, show respect, and show that you're getting more mature as a man in the area of listening is where you validate the things that she says versus try to fix them. And I'll never forget, a great picture of this was when I was with my son. I actually wasn't with my wife, but I was with my son and we woke up at dark 30. We put the snowboards into the truck and we're driving to the mountains to go snowboarding. And my son Ryan says, "Dad, this is great." And I looked at him and I said what a lot of dads say to their son. I said, son, when I was growing up, I never did this with my dad. I never went out and did activities like this. And I kind of went on and on for about 5 minutes. And I'll never forget the response of my son. All he said was, "Oh man, Dad, that is so sad." And I just went, wow, I didn't expect him to say that. But you know what he was doing? He wasn't trying to make me feel better. "Oh, well, we're going to have a good day and we're going to go do this and we're going to go do that." He didn't try to fix, my regret over that. All he did was just validate that deal that I had with my dad was just, it was just sad. He felt sad for me. And you know what that's called, guys? I want to introduce you to a term. That's being congruent emotionally, okay, versus fixing. When you validate someone, you're just congruent with the story and what was shared, and you're making a normal response. But you know what, guys? You know what we do? We get all anxious when someone's telling us something that's either sad or things aren't just going so well, and then we rush to, "Oh, well, I don't know what to do with that sad emotion. We're going to go do this and we're going to go do that." And we get into the fixing mode. I know all you guys know what I'm talking about, okay? But what she's looking for is not for you to, as she's talking and hearing sad stuff, go, "Oh, well, you shouldn't be sad because, we have this or that, or I'm doing this or that, or you should do this or that." All she wants you to say is, "Wow, that's a bummer." Or, "Oh, that's just so awesome." Okay? And that's what's called being congruent emotionally. And that's what the ladies are looking for. They don't want you to fix them. They want you to just kind of validate what's going on. And I know that that's like this mysterious thing that we're trying to put our finger on. Let me just tell you, it's a couple words. That's sad. That's awesome. Wow, you must have been so happy. Okay? So that's the first tactic. Validate what she's saying versus fix. Okay? Here's the second tip. Turn and face versus talk into space. Okay? And I know what you guys are talking about on that one. Because even as I'm looking at you right now, okay, I'm just pretend that, that you're my wife for a second and we're talking about something really serious. And then just think behind you is ESPN. Okay? And my favorite team on ESPN. And so she starts talking to me and I start going, "Uh-huh. Oh, what? Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. Uh-huh. Okay. There's a message there, which is what you're saying is really not that important because what's going on behind you on the flat screen is way more important. And so body language, fellas, you hear it all the time. There's nothing more. Have you been with somebody who was there but not there? How did you feel? Okay. So you turn and face versus talk into space. Every time you get the chance, if you're talking with your wife or someone you're dating, just really focus on eliminating other things from your line of vision or just grabbing the remote and just going, boop, turn it off. And in doing that, I've done that so many times where it's just like, all right, I'm really interested in what's going on there. I just got to turn that thing off. Or else I'm going to communicate disrespect, immaturity, and a lack of love. Okay, so that's the second tip. Turn and face versus stare off into space. Okay, here's your third tactic. Repeat versus delete. What do I mean? Repeat versus delete. So what I hear you're saying is, or is this right? Tell me if I'm right. What you're saying is, and so what you're doing is you're repeating what they said, and if you're able to repeat what they've said and articulate what their line of thinking was, it shows respect and it shows that you were listening, okay? So that's a real easy way, is just repeat what they say. But now, here's the strongest way, and by far and away, of all the strategies. This is the strongest way to show your wife or the woman you're dating that you've been listening. Okay, here it is. Act versus ignore. Okay, the best listeners hear in between the lines. I'll give you an example. In my own marriage with Chrissy, blew her mind. In the context of a conversation, I'm listening, we're talking, and she goes, "Oh, it's just so frustrating, in the laundry room when, the detergent falls off the washing machine and I wish I had a shelf in there and it's just kind of a throwaway." Okay? Pull out the mat. She almost dropped dead. So she leaves. I go to the hardware store. Just all of a sudden, I become Kenny the Tool Man Taylor. And she comes back and the shelf is in. Okay? And you talk about listening. And you talk about happiness, and you talk about intimacy. Oh my goodness. And you see, I know that your wife and you have these conversations and you hear little veiled asks or concerns or frustrations, and you can act versus ignore. That's your choice, okay? But if you want to give your wife Christ-like love and Christ-like attention and show her that you really care about her, that you are listening, then when you hear that and when you see that and you take action, that is really something, and it has an impact on the relationship.